Most people think the food in a grocery store is the food supply. It isn't. If you walked into your local supermarket and found the shelves where bottled water, bread, milk, and eggs are usually stocked, sitting almost empty, it would be easy to assume the store had simply run out of food. In reality, the disruption likely began much earlier. A grocery store is the final stop in a much larger system. Farms, food processors, packaging facilities, regional warehouses, trucking companies, fuel suppliers, power grids, internet connections, payment networks, and thousands of workers all have to keep operating so you can pick up groceries on your way home. Most of the time, that system is invisible. Shortages bring it into view. Emergency planners have recognized this vulnerability for years. FEMA advises households to be prepared to be self-sufficient for at least 3 days, and the American Red Cross recommends keeping enough food and water for several days. Those recommendations are not based on extreme scenarios. They reflect the time it can take for deliveries and essential services to return after a disruption. The message is straightforward. Do not assume the grocery store will always be ready when you are. Modern grocery stores are designed for efficiency, not long-term storage. Most of the inventory that supplies your community is not sitting on store shelves waiting for customers. It is moving through a continuous network, traveling from farms to processors into packaging facilities, then to regional distribution centers before trucks deliver it to individual stores. That constant movement reduces waste and keeps costs lower, but it also leaves little room for interruption. Electricity powers refrigeration. Internet connections manage inventory and authorize electronic payments. Diesel fuel keeps delivery trucks on the road. Warehouses organize shipments. Workers load pallets, receive deliveries, and restock shelves. If one part of that system slows down, the effects begin spreading through the rest of the network. Consider a disruption affecting your area. Severe weather may interrupt transportation. Power outages may affect distribution centers. Labor shortages or fuel problems may slow deliveries. Whatever the cause, trucks that normally arrive on schedule begin arriving late, or they stop arriving altogether. The disruption is only the beginning. Delayed deliveries prevent stores from replacing inventory. As inventory declines, the most frequently purchased items disappear first. Customers respond by buying more than usual. That increase in demand empties shelves even faster. A problem that began somewhere upstream becomes visible in the aisles of your local supermarket. This pattern has appeared repeatedly during real emergencies. During the COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain disruptions and sudden increases in consumer demand led to shortages across many grocery categories. Food production had not stopped. Transportation, labor, inventory management, and consumer demand had simply fallen out of balance. The February 2021 Texas winter storm demonstrated a similar chain of dependencies. More than 4.5 million electricity customers lost power. Grocery operations were affected by outages, transportation problems, refrigeration failures, and disrupted food distribution. A failure in one part of the infrastructure quickly affected several others because the systems supporting daily life were closely connected. That interdependence makes modern supply chains both highly efficient and vulnerable to disruption. If electricity is lost, refrigeration stops. Without refrigeration, perishable food eventually becomes unsafe. Power outages also affect store operations, including registers and other essential systems. If communications are disrupted, stores have greater difficulty coordinating with suppliers. If fuel deliveries slow, trucking schedules become harder to maintain. Each interruption increases pressure somewhere else in the network. the grocery store becomes the place where those hidden dependencies become visible. For ordinary households, the effects are immediate. A routine shopping trip becomes uncertain. If electronic payment systems are unavailable, having food on the shelf does not necessarily mean it can be purchased the way you normally would. Some retailers may switch to cash-only transactions if their systems allow it, while others may temporarily suspend sales until payment networks recover. Something as routine as buying groceries suddenly depends on communication systems that usually go unnoticed. Another overlooked detail is that grocery stores are not warehouses. Much of the reserve inventory is held at regional distribution centers that supply dozens and sometimes hundreds of stores. If one of those facilities is disrupted, shortages can spread across a wide area before customers understand the cause. The empty shelf is often the final indication of a problem that began much earlier. Human behavior also shapes what happens next. When shoppers see essential items disappearing, many buy more than they normally would. The response is understandable, but it accelerates shortages. By the time you notice several aisles beginning to empty, many other shoppers have already reacted to the same signals. The system is built to meet steady demand, not a sudden surge from everyone at once. That is why emergency agencies consistently encourage preparation before an emergency begins. Basic adjustments, like keeping a few days of shelf-stable food, some backup cash, and a hand-crank radio, aren't for doomsday scenarios. They simply buy you time while the invisible network resets. These are all practical recommendations from FEMA and the American Red Cross. These preparations are not intended for extraordinary situations. They reduce dependence on systems that may be temporarily unavailable. Real emergencies also reveal recurring mistakes. Many people wait until warnings are issued before buying supplies. Others assume electronic payments will always be available. Improper handling of refrigerated food after power outages creates avoidable health risks, and unsafe generator use has repeatedly caused preventable injuries and deaths. These are documented patterns observed across many different emergencies. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, governments, emergency planners, and the grocery industry have strengthened parts of the supply chain through improved inventory visibility, forecasting, and logistics technology. Even so, the underlying dependencies remain. Food depends on transportation. Transportation depends on fuel. Warehouses depend on electricity. Stores depend on communications. Communities depend on thousands of people performing ordinary jobs every day. The grocery store problem is not simply about empty shelves. It reveals how many systems work together, quietly and continuously, to support everyday life. Most days, you never notice the truck arriving before sunrise, the warehouse organizing shipments overnight, or the network approving a card payment in seconds. That coordination makes the system feel effortless. Its vulnerability becomes visible only when those ordinary processes begin falling out of sync. When that happens, the first sign is rarely a power plant, a warehouse, or a distribution center. It is often the grocery store down the street.